Good afternoon. Mr. Chancellor, Principal Goldblum, graduates of the class of 2016, friends of the university, it is my honor to present Abel Bosum. We have all heard and read too many tragic stories about Indigenous communities in Canada. Well, today we celebrate another story, a remarkable story of success against all the odds. We honor Abel Bosum, a Cree leader of unusual distinction, even among the extraordinary cadre of Cree leaders. In doing so, we celebrate his achievements and those of his community of Ujibugamo and of his nation, the Cree of Iu-Istchi, James Bay. But most of all, we celebrate Abel the man. The name Abel has several meanings. One is breath. Another is the great stone on which the ark settled after its long voyage. And a third is a grassy place, a meadow. Abel's life reflects all these meanings, for it is the stuff of biblical epics. Abel has had a long career of stunning achievements. First among them, he led the struggle to reestablish his community of Ujibugamo, driven from their land 7 times in 50 years by mining developments and other projects. They lived scattered in tar paper shacks by the side of the road, with no water, no electricity, no services of any kind. Then, supreme irony, they were treated as squatters on their own land. Where others might have despaired, Abel rallied his community. Where others saw only shacks, Abel inspired his people with the vision of a shining community. But vision alone is not enough. Abel fired his people with the courage and determination to make it happen in the face of government indifference and hostility. Not only did the people of Ujibugamo reestablish their community, they did it with enough design flair and environmental sensitivity for it to be recognized as a model by UNESCO. Abel is too modest to acknowledge it, but he might have been named Moses, for he brought his people home. Abel has made a career of negotiating landmark treaties and agreements for his community and for the entire Cree nation. These include the Pays des Braves, the Cree-Quebec Governance Agreement, and key agreements on health, engineering, mining, forestry, and many more. Abel has done these deals, often very complex and high stakes, with an extraordinary blend of vision, empathy, firmness, charm, shrewdness, and when needed, the face of the Sphinx. Disarming adversaries with a shared laugh, a story. All the while, grooming a new generation of Cree leaders to carry on the work. In the end, what we admire in Abel goes beyond his achievements. It's Abel the man we admire, the man who inspires those around him to make real a vision they never thought they had it in them. The man who, true to his name, breathes warmth, generosity, compassion, courage, modesty, and a roaring love of life. Mr. Chancellor, for all these things, I present to you for the degree of Doctor of Civil Law, honoris causa, Mr. Abel Bosum, former and founding chief of Ujibugamo.
Domina spectatissima auctoritate mihi commissa admitto te ad gradum doctoris in juris civili in nostra universitate honoris causa. Congratulations. Welcome.
Naskum Semendo, Ugadisakats. Good afternoon, bonjour. Thank you for your warm welcome today, and I'd like to express my most humble gratitude to have been chosen by Bishop's University, among who I am certain were so many worthy candidates to receive this honorary degree in civil law. I understand that it's customary for people who receive this recognition to address the graduating class and to pass along life's lessons and some wisdom. Whether I have shared with you today is wise, useful, or resonates with anyone will be up to you to judge. I can only say what I know. I want to begin my brief remarks by describing for you where I come from. I, like most Cree people of my generation, was born in the bush. I was born in James Bay region we call EUSG, which in Cree means land of the people. I spent my early childhood living in a traditional way of life, with my parents living off the land in the comfort and security of tight-knit family. My early life was carefree and adventurous. In the summer of 1960, when I was about 5 years old, my parents and I made our way by canoe from Mujibugumu-Sakigan, our gathering place, to Mistisni Post located on Mistasni Lake. This was an annual trip my parents took in order to obtain credit from the Hudson Bay Company to purchase supplies that would last us through the winter. My parents pitched up a tent upon arrival. This particular trip would change my life. One evening, my mother pulled out a bag with new clothing. Surprisingly, they were for me. I was overwhelmed because I never had new clothes. She had me try them for size and then asked me to remove them. She told me that I could put them on the next day without an explanation. All I could think of was tomorrow would be a very special day. That evening, I was told to sleep early, as I did. I wondered what tomorrow had in store for me. I was up early the following morning as my parents prepared tea and bannock for breakfast. Afterwards, I was told to put on my new clothes. Within minutes, I was dressed and walking around proudly. My parents were strangely quiet as they went about packing a small bag. They didn't talk to each other, nor did they make eye contact. I thought they had an argument. That's all my 5-year-old mind could understand. It was not long after I heard a plane circling the community. As always, when a plane arrived, there was commotion in the community. People were anxious to see who and what it brought to town. My stepfather, Samuel, called to me and simply said, "It is time." He took me by the hand, and in his other hand, he held a small bag they had packed. My mother walked beside us quietly and took my free hand in hers without uttering a word. As we neared the docks, I noticed other children wearing new clothes, making their way down to the dock. Once at the dock, families started to murmur as a white man came from the plane started calling out names. I watched children being loaded onto the plane, one by one. Some starting to cry, leaving their parents standing alone on the docks. I could sense there was something wrong. Then I heard my name called. I looked up to my mom, who was in tears. She stooped down and kissed me and said something I couldn't make out as she wept. My stepfather gently pulled me away, took my hand and led me towards the plane. He lifted me up in his arms and kissed me. The next thing I knew, I was inside the plane, filled with children. All I could hear were sobs as we tried to catch a glimpse of our families through a small window of the plane. I felt trapped. I was scared. And there was nowhere to go. In a panic, I looked around for my parents, but I didn't see them in the crowd. In hindsight, they must have left the area because they couldn't bear to watch what was happening. As fear gripped my body, I screamed for my mother, but she could not save me from the inevitable. I don't remember how many children were on that plane that morning. All I know is we were crammed in tightly. I heard the engine of the plane start and saw the plane slowly float away from the dock. Within seconds, we were in the air, heading to an unknown destination. We had no choice. No choice but to sit there and try to understand what this was all about. A giant tub sat in the middle of the plane. It didn't take long for me to realize what it was there for. One by one, we all became sick. The plane smelled of diesel fuel and vomit. At some point, we could no longer cry. We were sick, helpless, and moving further away from the only home we ever knew. This was my reality at a tender age of 5. I was swept away from my parents, away from my culture and tradition, and displaced to a strange environment with strange people and strange rules. I was forbidden to speak my mother tongue, forbidden to communicate with other children I knew, and forbidden to speak unless spoken to. The freedom I once enjoyed had vanished in the length of a plane ride. It was stripped away instantly. This was my first experience with the Indian residential system. For the next 10 years, I grew up in a foreign environment that was intended to assimilate me into the mainstream Canadian society with the intent of destroying the Cree in me, my Cree roots, and my Cree way of life. It would later be termed cultural genocide. But I stand before you today as proof that I didn't let the system destroy my spirit. Residential school is where I met my wife, Sophie. We shared many of the same experiences and vowed that we would never allow our children to suffer or be abused as we had been abused. Sophie and I spent the last 46 years of our lives as partners, fighting for social justice and for a better future for our children, our grandchildren, our community, and our Cree Nation. I returned to my village in late 1960 to find that the world had changed all around us. A forestry road had been built from Lake St. John to our traditional territory. Many mining prospectors had arrived. Before long, 2 municipalities were established and 5 mines were in operation. The Quebec government moved in with its offices, and the next thing we knew, we were fined for hunting on the land we grew up on, and we were forced to move. Our villages, our home, along with our graveyards, were bulldozed by mining companies to make room for their exploration and development work. It was clear that the mining companies were in charge, and their activities took precedence over everything else. We had to relocate our homes and rebuild our villages 7 times during the course of 15 years to make room for mining development. By 1970, we came to be viewed as squatters on our own homeland, and every effort was made to make us disappear. There was no consultation and no regard of our inherent rights within the traditional territory. This was a frightening time for my people. All of this took place at the same time as very dramatic events were unfolding for the entire Cree Nation. The James Bay Hydroelectric Project was announced. Again, on a much more massive scale, the Cree people were not consulted, nor our consent ever sought. We undertook legal proceedings to defend our rights, our environment, and our way of life. This massive project went on to flood 11,500 square kilometers of our traditional territory, roughly twice the size of Prince Edward Island. This devastated and destroyed a significant portion of the USG and interfered in the way of life of our Cree people. After a lengthy court battle, an agreement was concluded. The James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement was signed in 1975, which is regarded as the first modern-day treaty. There was to be a process in that agreement to address the need of my community for a permanent home. Unfortunately, as is the historic pattern of many agreements between Indigenous parties and governments, clear obligations were not respected by governments, and the Cree Nation was left with a broken treaty. Back home, by the 1980s, the people of my community have been reduced to living along the highways in third world conditions with no running water, no sanitation, no electrical facilities, despite the world's largest mega project in our backyard, with the majority of my people living in tar paper sacks. My people asked me to become their chief, and with the support of a small team of resource people, I spent the next 15 years fighting for our right to have our own village once again, and this time a permanent one. We spent enormous energy developing our case, lobbying, strategizing, planning, fighting to obtain our right to a home. After many years of struggle, in 1989, we concluded an agreement with Quebec, which allowed us to begin construction of a new community. Canada signed on 2 years later. Ojibukmu was reborn. It has since received a number of international awards for its innovation in community development and has been regarded by many observers as a model Aboriginal community. We finally came home. At the Cree Nation level, we launched court cases, and we conducted national and international relations campaigns to bring world attention to the failure of both Quebec and Canada to fulfill their solemn obligations under our treaty. In 2001, the Cree and Quebec agreed to set aside conflicts and to create a new partnership through a new relationship agreement. This marked the turning point in relations between the Cree and Quebec, and we have been on this new path ever since with both levels of government. We have embarked on a path of mutual respect and collaboration, and also on a path of Indigenous nation building. Today we continue to grow and evolve. Although we have a long journey ahead of us, we have laid the foundation for the emergence of a unique and dynamic Indigenous nation. Now you may ask yourself, what does this all have to do with you and this ceremony? It is simple. It's for the students. We all face struggles in our lives, and we have stories about these struggles. It is these struggles and stories that'll shape you, that'll shape who you will become. The story that I've shared with you is simply mine. It is a story where choice was stripped away from me at a very young age and stripped away from my people. In my adulthood, I wanted to be in control of how my future was shaped, and I wanted my people to become masters of their own destiny. Although my experience in a residential school was dramatic and extreme, I had to learn to deal with new and strange environment. As graduates, you too will be presented with challenges. You will enter into new environments. You will be pulled out of your comfort zones, and you will have to make critical choices that will shape who you will become. Please know that having a choice is a right and a privilege. So exercise that right responsibly and wisely. I believe that all our lives have a purpose. My purpose has given me a reason to get up every morning. My purpose has helped me weather storms and helped me face difficult challenges. My purpose has helped me to discern the right path from the wrong one. So I say to you, believe that you have a purpose in this life and live your life with purpose. My life experience has taught me about passion. If you are sincerely committed to achieving a noble goal, and if you devote yourself entirely to that goal, with your mind, your emotions, your energy, your will, and your spirit, you will get there. Along the way, you will pick up all the skills, the knowledge, and the education you need to get you there. Do not be afraid to pursue your passion. My life experience taught me to be open-minded. I have learned that there are many truths. Depending on whose perspective you see it from, choosing to treasure the diversity of people you will encounter, along with their belief systems, will allow you to better understand what's happening around you. Open-mindedness to other truths, not holding too tightly to your own, may sometimes result in feelings of vulnerability. I believe that it is our vulnerability that protects us from the arrogance of certitude. It is certitude, along with fear and excessive pride, that are the enemies of creativity and open-mindedness. Be courageous. Become the hero of your own story. Never let other people tell you that you can't do something. And remember, courage is not about conquering fear. It's about acknowledging fear, getting to understand your fears, and deciding to act anyway, armed with your deepest values and your highest ideals. You will receive a diploma from Bishop University. Hang this diploma up with pride as a testament to your achievement. Let it serve as a reminder that you can achieve many great things in this life, armed with choices, a purpose, your passion, and an open mind. Congratulations to all this year's Bishop graduates. Thank you, Mirgach. Merci.